Welcome to JustWannaQuilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School, where we explore all kinds of things, stories about quilting, tools, field trips, maybe some famous quilters stop by, and a little bit of copyright thrown in just for fun. I'm Elizabeth Townsend Guard. I'm a law professor at Tulane University Law School, and I just want to quilt. So today we talked to Stephanie Palmer of the Quilters-Planner. If you all know this is this really cool book thing. It's like a spiral thing that helps you keep track of not only your life, but your quilting throughout the year. It's also got a magazine that goes with it. I purchased it because it would just seem like I had to purchase it. We talked to Stephanie about why she made a planner and what goes into making a planner and an annual magazine.
So we're going to start out. We're also going to donate these to the Quilt Alliance, these interviews. So
okay, that's great.
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is to tell me your name and where you are right now.
My name is Stephanie Palmer, and I am in a nature preserve right now in Austin.
That's so great.
Austin, Texas.
Why are you in a nature preserve?
So I had a field trip today for one of my children, and so I just snuck off for a little bit. I thought, you know what, this idea that we really can do it all, look, we're going to do it all. I don't know, we might get accosted by some children while we're interviewing, but I'm not really sure.
That is so great. I love it. Okay, cool. Well, we'll go fast.
It's okay. It's really okay. As long as you're okay with it, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's so far so good. Sounds great. So it's all going well. Okay, cool. Okay. So we asked the first question is, what's your first memory of someone sewing or quilting in your life?
Well, I had an aunt who was a master quilter, amazing art quilts, that I always grew up knowing that she sewed, but nobody in my immediate nuclear family sewed. So I wasn't surrounded by it like some of my colleagues and friends are or were. But my aunt, when I would go and look at her quilts when we went on family vacations, and at that time I didn't really have an appreciation for it or an understanding of it. And unfortunately, I didn't really even get the desire to learn to quilt until later after she had passed away.
And how did you come to quilting?
I was looking through, I was pregnant with one of my kids, and I was looking through Pinterest and saw a picture of a beautiful quilt pop up, and the colors just got me. And I thought, oh, I need to make that. I need to make that right now. Even though I had no idea how to sew. I didn't have any sewing machine or anything.
And how long ago was that?
I guess that was about 6 years ago.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's a big, fast 6 years.
Yeah. I'd like to dive into whatever I'm trying to do.
Right. So, so tell me, I'm really, really obsessed with understanding more about the Quilters Planner. So we can probably sort of focus on that. How did you get to the Quilters Planner? If 6 years ago you just saw something on Pinterest, how did you get to having, like it's everywhere. The Quilters Planner is everywhere. I went to a big quilt guild, and I was amazed at how many people had it.
Really?
Yes. Like it was really
that's nice to know.
Had them on their lap while they were like, taking notes in it, and like they were part. It was just like it was a thing.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I don't know always because I don't get out that much, so I don't even know. But that's good. That's good to know. I think I developed it because, I developed a quick passion for quilting and really just enjoyed the challenge of it. I really love a challenge. And so I got kind of deep into enjoying learning about it. And then on the other side, I'm a psychologist, and I like to stay busy. All of these things kind of come together in the way that I think about human nature. And I am not an organized person. Yeah. I never, ever have been an organized person. It's just not my thing. And I'm kind of okay with that, but I also recognize that in order to be productive, I have to be. Right. So I really developed it selfishly based on my own desperate need.
Really interesting. How does your background, you have a PhD in clinical psychology, how does that impact on what you're doing? Do you see any connection to your life, that part of your life, to this part of your life?
Well, I think it's one of those professions that kind of it infuses itself in all parts of my life. It just is, after you've been to school so long and that you've lived it so long, it just becomes the way that you think. And so I think it helps me in thinking about learning about what maybe other people's needs are when I'm developing that kind of a product. It probably helps in that way.
Did you have a background in developing products before you did the Quilter's Planner?
No, not at all.
So was there a huge learning curve in trying to figure out like the logistics of all of this? It seems like the
I mean, I'm still learning every day. It's still a learning curve every day.
All right. So you said you're not organized, but that you made an organizer.
Right.
How did you decide that that's what you wanted to do and that you were going to make it into a business? Like that seems amazing to me. Like that's a big thing.
I know. I actually, I think I had seen that paper planners were, I don't know if I would say making a comeback, but it seems like we went through a phase where nobody was using a paper planner anymore. I mean, I grew up using one as a child. In fact, when I was in maybe first, second, third grade, we had a little planner that the school gave us, and we had to write our assignment down every day, and then our parent had to sign it to say that they knew what our assignment was. I don't think they do that anymore at all, but I think maybe it at least taught me the skill of using a planner, and I've always loved to write, the act of writing, physically writing. I've always loved that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think I noticed on social media in other areas that planners seem to make a little bit of a comeback. I know personally I had tried to switch to all my smartphone.
Yeah.
Back in Palm Pilots and all of that. So I tried to do that kind of stuff, and it never worked for me. I always just had to write it down to remember things. So I thought, well, hey, I have this problem. I need to write things down, and I'm designing quilts, or I'm trying to design quilts. I'm sketching out designs, and I'm losing them all the time. Wouldn't it be nice if I had one place to put everything, all of my appointments and my sketches and designs and ideas for the quilting that I want to do? So I just thought it would make it, I would lose things less if I had it all in one place.
So how did you go about, okay, so here it is. I got it. See? Oh, here it is.
Oh, okay.
How did you go about organizing it, designing it, thinking about it? What was your process? Okay, I'm going to make a planner. Did you have a sense of what I like about it is it's different than just a regular planner. It really is for quilters in terms of the layout.
It is. And I started to just jot down a list because I'm also a huge list maker. Love lists.
Yeah.
Lists everywhere, all over my house. And I started to just make lists of what I wished that I had in a planner. It was very selfish in the development of it. But then I took that and started to talk with all of my quilting friends. And thanks to the social media world, we're able to be connected and share ideas with each other in a way that we never would have been able to do a decade ago. So I just started to ask other friends, hey, do you think you would find this interesting? And what would be helpful to you? And then I did a survey because I have a background in doing surveys and just gathering information from people, and then started to compile it and pull pieces together. And that's probably another area where I don't know so much as being a psychologist, but getting a PhD. You have to be able to pull information.
Really
right. Yeah, you have to be able to bring a lot of information together in a cohesive way. So I think that part is where my training helped.
So I think what's also I have a PhD in European history, and so I think that what also it does is it makes you you're used to having big projects, and they scare you.
That's right. Very true.
And you know that you have to break it up, and you have the deadline, and there's there's always this big project in my world, and I really blame being a PhD student on that.
Right. I think you're right. Maybe I just missed having a big project.
Yeah.
That probably was a big motivator.
Yeah. Okay. So you also have the quilters,
the magazine,
right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So how did that come about, and how is that connected to the planner?
Well, the first year I wanted to include patterns in the planner itself because I have all of these friends who are independent designers of quilt patterns. And I think that that's what makes our community really special and fun and interesting.
So let me pause you there. Like, what role do you think the independent pattern makers have? Because we're going to start to do a special focus on them?
In our community?
Yeah.
They're driving it forward. They're defining the movement of what becomes popular, interesting, what's inspiring to people, and they're constantly riffing off of what's been around before and creating something new, some new, derivative work from what's been around for centuries.
Yeah.
So they're very important, very important in our community.
Okay. So you have a bunch of them, and so you gathered them, and then did you just ask them to do a pattern? Like, how did it work in terms of the patterns? Did you ask?
How did it go back? The first year I had limited resources. So I had a budget, and I realized that I could hire or purchase a certain number of patterns. I forget how many were in the first one. And I didn't have enough resources to publish it in a magazine. So we did it as a downloadable PDF. And then we published just a couple of the patterns in the planner itself, just so some people would have something fun to look at in the planner itself. Yeah. And then also I was involved at that time. I was blogging a lot. And so I was involved with a lot of friends who were blogging for enjoyment, and some were trying to turn it into something else. And I invited them to contribute a block design, because we had all done these blocks for some other, I don't even remember what it was for, but all of these friends of mine had developed blocks for some program. So we had all of these blocks sitting there, and I thought, I think these blocks would really inspire other people who don't read blogs and might enjoy them. They've already been written.
Right.
So we put those in. Now I've forgotten your original question, but I guess.
No, that's all good. So in terms of like the logistics of it, so you had different people contributing the blocks. They were friends, some that you paid for. How, like, when I look at this, first of all, it's amazing. It's gorgeous. There's a lot of work that goes into it. You could clearly see it. I've made the log cabin once. I'm working my way through. I'm behind. And I made this one. It does not look like this. But I made this one.
Oh, I can't see it. Is that Karen Lewis's?
Yeah, Karen Lewis's log cabin, because it was so
I love her work.
Right? Yeah, it was really cool. So how do you get, like, how much financing, how much funding do you have to have for a project like this?
Printing is expensive.
Yeah.
It's really expensive. And, in the printing world, the more that you can order and print, then the more affordable it becomes, both for you as the manufacturer and the customers, Right. And we're not, our quilting community is big, but we're not talking about like 100,000 textbooks or anything like that. So it's not an inexpensive product. And that's why, because the printing industry is expensive. Yeah. But, and this is also, it's more of a custom book. It's not like they can just spit out one. They do the tabs differently. Right. It's compiled by hand by people. And so that kind of thing makes it kind of pricey to put together. So that's why I did, for the first year, I did an Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign, because I really wasn't sure. Okay, How many people would really want to do this before I jump in and print?
And how was that? How was that experience of doing a crowdfunding campaign?
I like learning new stuff, and I like, as I said, challenges. So it was definitely both those things. A lot of learning and a lot of challenge, just to kind of figure out a new platform. And
right.
But it was fun.
Very cool. And how much is the business model about? The business model is about selling the book, not the patterns necessarily. There's other things you can write. Like, I guess, what's your goal? Like, did you make a business plan? Like, there's a lot of quilt entrepreneurs out there who probably think they're just incredible. And so I guess I'm trying to get a sense of sort of what is a quilt entrepreneur, and sort of any advice for people who've got ideas like you did in trying to do it.
Well, I think I was fortunate to have some advice from other friends who are business people, both my husband and other friends that we've had that have gone to business school or in the business world. And they all told me, you got to keep it very streamlined. You got to narrowly tailor what you're doing for your business plan. And as a creative person, this is very hard for me, because everything I think of or see is like a new bright, shiny object that I want to do. And lots of customers will give me suggestions about what they think I should do. Mm-hmm. And I have to really just stay narrowly tailored. It's just, for me right now, it's publishing one book and an accompanying magazine with patterns, supporting independent designers in the way that I can, and in a way that's fair to them and that inspires other people, and also just helps people be organized, but not in a stressful, overwhelmed kind of way, not in a type A kind of way.
Yeah. We'll go through that in just a second. When do you start you've already started when does it, like, what's your cycle of production?
So yeah, we're looking at design, and we're putting together the 2019 planner digitally right now. And we usually go to print. My goal is to go to print July 1st, and then it takes at least 6 weeks to print. And there's usually something that happens that slows it down at the factory, at the printing press, and that I don't have control over. So anyway, but I would really be happy to have the planners by early September this year.
Very cool. And who's your audience? Who's buying this?
Good question. I wish I knew exactly. I think I think it's quilters. Between the ages of probably, I would say, 35 and 70 to buy it. But I don't know exactly how to define what kind of person buys the planner versus not, because it's a niche within a niche.
Right.
There's only a small percentage of people that would even be interested in having a planner within the quilting world. So,
really interesting. Do you see, like, when I look at this, it feels like it's both straddling people who like modern, contemporary, traditional. Like, are you trying to they're more contemporary colors, not the kind of it's not like Civil War reproductions.
No, I try to pull from a broad range of different types of patterns. I think maybe the first year it was leaning more modern, and then I've kind of expanded it to make it as broad as I can with the submissions that I get. And because I like lots of different styles, and I think a lot of people do.
Yeah. And the photography is gorgeous in the magazine.
The photographer is Kitty Wilkin, and she blogs under the name Night Quilter. I blogged under the name Late Night Quilter. And I'm hearing like a noise in the woods, but it's not a bear or a bobcat coming to eat me. Probably not. Most likely not. Kitty does the photography, and she photographs all of the quilts outdoors in Maine. So it's really special and beautiful.
Oh, interesting. That's really interesting. So everybody makes their quilts and sends them to you, and you film them all in Maine?
That's right. They're all photographed in Maine.
That's really interesting.
And Maine is gorgeous. So
gives it the look that it has.
It does. It's defined a lot of the look of it. So, and the photographs of each quilt appear on the pages of the tabs that divide the book into sections. And then each of those quilts the patterns are in the accompanying magazine.
Got it. Okay. So this is my favorite part of what I found about you. I bought it because I'm trying to buy like things that we get a lot of people sending us research samples. That's great. But with yours, I was a bit shy. I didn't ask for it. But I also just was like, it's such a thing. Like, I just kept seeing it. I'm like, I have to buy this because it's like, I have to understand what it is. And I'm totally into lists. And I'm totally into trying to stay organized, even though I'm not ever organized. So I totally get it.
Okay. So we share that in common. You understand what I'm saying then.
Totally. Yeah. Then I got it, and I was too afraid to write in it. Right?
Oh, I hear people say that.
Right? It's like so beautiful. And I'm like, I'm going to mess it up. So my favorite blog post is your writing test, because it was great. Like, you went through all the different pens, which is yes. I'm like, this is perfect. Like, because you do.
Everybody always asks, what kind of pen should I buy? And I don't sell the pens because, again, I think as a small business, we've got to stay narrowly tailored, and I can't go out and sell a dozen different products right now. I just that wouldn't be wise. So
no, but it was great. It really was. I was like, oh yes, this is perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to buy these pens.
Right. And that post was written also by Kitty Wilkins. She and I work together a lot. And so she wrote that post and took those pictures.
It was great. It was so great. Okay, so I'm going to go through a page. So I'm just on, so I want to understand sort of your thinking behind the, So first it's got the month, like you get a month. I love the month thing. And the month thing you see is what? Planning, like your general, like what do you do with the month catalog?
It's definitely an at a glance. It's for you to jot down the things that you have going on in the week that you're not supposed to forget about, like podcast with Dr. Elizabeth. So things like that. You need to just jot down so you can glance at it and be like, okay, I know that that's coming up. And then it's also a place where you can write some goals for yourself for the month.
Right. So give me an example of like, okay, monthly goals, personal goals, and quilting projects. So is this your like psychologist side of you? Like what kind of personal projects? Like what kind of personal projects should I have? Like,
I guess that depends if you're like existential and you really want to be working on something, or if it's more like I need to redo my bathroom. I don't know, whatever you want, whatever works for you. But I try to like give prompts of what I thought would make it helpful for a person, but not be too prescriptive in how you have to do it.
Okay. Then you've got like, can we go through? Then each week there's like 3 dots at the top for each day. Mm-hmm. And then there's a time, which I love. And then there's the time, like from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Right. And the times are written in super light because some people don't like to put in times and they just ignore those at all. Right. And then other people like to kind of trace over whichever time they have an appointment and make it more bold. And then some people just use that whole column for in the weekly for like Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday as like a running list of things to do. And sometimes I'll do that. Oh, it's just a running list of all that I need to get done in the day, maybe with one appointment thrown in there, you know?
Right. And people are color coding it and doing all kinds of stuff. They're making it super fancy.
Yeah.
Like the person I was sitting next to that had it, hers was incredible. It was like
really?
Yeah.
It's like, so voyeuristic, isn't it? To peek into somebody's planner. It's so interesting, which I think is why maybe it's interesting when people will share it on social media because it's very personal to show what's inside your planner and whether it's messy or neat or, you know, I know that as I'm showing my social media pictures, sometimes I'll be like, oh gosh, look at that. That's a very private thing to have in there. But sometimes I'll just show it anyway. So it depends.
All right. And then there's on the side of each week, there's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday through Sunday of habit tracker. And it's got like 8 little bubbles. What do you do with the bubbles?
So I think that a lot of people are constantly working on something they want to change about their behavior. And so one of the best ways to make any changes in your behavior is to track it and actually put it down on paper. I mean, you hear that from everybody from life coaches to people that are helping in fitness and health. You got to write it down. And so that's the idea of this.
Or diet or
anything. And so you can choose to track any behavior you want in this. Again, we designed it so it was very open. You can track the most obvious kind of example that you see is like drinking more water, or it could just be exercise.
Yeah. Right. Totally. Then you've got a pattern section and it's got really cool graphs. And then I like the projects at a glance. That's
my favorite. I think that's my favorite.
Yes. And references. I love the reference stuff. How did you think about that part? That
was one of those things. I was designing quilts and I'm always kind of like, oh, where's my books that explain this? And when I would need to find them off my shelf. And I thought it'd be nice to have it right there with me.
Yeah. And it's great. It really is. Like, you're like, oh, this is so great. It's got cutting. It's got all kinds of stuff. So how much is it the same? How much is each year the same? And how much is it different? Like, do you have certain aspects and then there's also, of course, I forgot, the most important part is stickers. You got the stickers in the back, which is super great because everybody loves stickers.
I know. That's a fun thing. That's just a fun thing. Yeah. So sorry, I'm in the way of someone walking down this pretty trail. Yeah, I wonder if I'll disturb them if I'm sitting here. They're having a nice hike. Okay, so the question was, how much do we change every year? I do surveys every year to ask the customer base, what did you like, what works for you, what didn't work for you, and then I try to be responsive while at the same time keeping the same framework. So the things that don't change are the general month and week, but one of the big things that I've questioned changing is whether it starts on a Monday versus a Sunday. That's like the most divisive thing for people who buy planners.
That's really interesting.
That's been the hardest thing for me as the designer and the person that, it's hard. It's really hard.
And what did you decide? I don't even know. Monday. You started on Monday.
I started on Monday this year. Last year I started on Sunday, and it seemed to me that most modern planners, not calendars, planners are starting on Monday. And I think in Europe and Asia, they often start on Monday. And in my brain, it makes sense because that's when my work week starts.
Yeah. Right.
And I like to have Saturday and Sunday together next to each other on the page. So when we're away for a weekend, it's just easier to write it like that. And so it makes sense to me. And I personally don't have a problem with change. It's just my personality. I like change a lot. But I've learned that lots of people don't like change. Yeah. I think I knew this as a psychologist. But
so do you know what you're going to do next year then?
Well, it's not a secret. I haven't fully decided, to be honest, because I think maybe I might change it back to a Sunday, but I don't know. Don't hold me to that. What I would love to do is be able to print 2 different versions. Yeah. But
that's a lot, though.
It is a lot.
Confusing because then you're like, I would be like, oh no, I don't know which one to get. So, you got choices, and choices not necessarily good, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, it will be decided within the next few weeks. I'm going to have to make a decision.
Very exciting. How much?
But it seems to be that people are split pretty much 50-50 on this issue.
Which is totally not helpful at all to you.
Not helpful. And they feel very strongly about it.
Right, which makes it terrible because, that's terrible, right? How do you just, start it on a Tuesday?
Yeah, exactly, right? That's
radical, right?
Good idea.
How much does social media, what role does social media play in the development of your business?
I think it's a very strong role. I think it has to be nowadays for business. It's pretty strong. And it's fun and it's hard at the same time, social media, So.
Are you selling now? Do you sell, most of your sales from online?
Most of them are online. There are some retailers that carry it in quilt shops, but it's tricky for them because it's a dated planner. So I feel for them. They buy fabric, and fabric sits on their shelves for a very long time, and you can't do that with this product. So I do always tell shops to be careful, think carefully about how many they're going to purchase. And
now, do you think you'd ever do one? So my life, I'm not okay. So summer just started for me because I'm a law professor yesterday. So I have to go back into January. So I'm kind of like a little behind, because life is chaotic for those months. Have you ever thought of, and I'm sure people have asked you, of one that's not dated, that is just...
Yes, I get that email periodically, and I've thought about it myself, and I think it's a very different product because, it takes a lot of work for somebody to go back in and put the dates in, and I think probably my feeling is that there's a very small percentage of people that will actually want to do that and will do it.
Right. Yeah.
So for that reason, I think that it's like when my business is nice and big and I have room to make additional products, that's one that I would do, but it wouldn't be number 1 on my list.
Right. Do you feel like you want to expand to say big box stores or more?
No, I'm enjoying the business the way that it is right now. I really.
It's a different thing when it's bigger. It's just different, right?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So just a few. What role does intellectual property play in what you do?
So I guess mostly with purchasing patterns from designers and thinking carefully about what's fair as far as the publication to ask them to not sell that pattern for a time while it's in the planner, while it's being sold in the planner. With all that said, my personal feeling is that the patterns that our designers in this world of quilting write have so much more life in them than what the industry makes them feel. Like there's this constant pressure for them to create new. Like once a month you need new patterns. And then the distributors won't even buy them anymore often once they're a few months
so
old.
Weird, right?
It is weird because like it's just the nature of it. And like even if you talk to independent designers, they'll share their photos of what they've designed a couple times on their social media channels, and then it's like too much and they won't share it anymore. But so many beautiful quilts have been designed, and so many people haven't seen those quilts. So I don't have a problem with publishing something that maybe has been released in the past on social media, which I think that's very unusual in the publishing world.
That's really interesting. Why do you think that is? Because it seems like, is it just because they want the new? Is that like...
It's just, I think maybe that's part of human nature, is that constant push for new. But I think there's plenty of ways to look at what I think is so cool about quilting is that you take a quilt and you do it in a different fabric, or maybe you switch what's the background for you can make a pattern look completely different based on the choices that you as an individual make.
Yeah.
So
that's really interesting. Well, I don't know. I think we live in interesting times, don't we? We're all the push for content is so great, yet the content is often, like evergreen, right? Podcasts are a good example, right? Like people aren't necessarily going to watch it this week. They may watch it for years. So it's
and
fun.
Do you put the date on your podcasts?
Good question. When they're released, yes, as part of it, because that's what happens with the platform.
Okay.
Even putting the month that the interview was done, but on the conversation itself, there's no date. Mostly because I did all of them. This is like logistics. Mostly because I did like 80 of them between Thanksgiving and New Year's this year.
Oh my gosh!
Totally insane.
Wow.
I was really nervous about it, right? Like, so I just kept doing more and more and more. Like, the more the more I was like, okay, well, let's just do 4 more.
Good for you.
And so I didn't want to date them because then we were going to do them in February. So I didn't want it to be like old. So I don't have the date on it when you...
Yeah, I notice in the blogging world, most people aren't putting the dates on what they're writing, and for the same reason. So much is evergreen now, but at the same time, sometimes you want, not necessarily with quilting, but you do want to know if information is current. And
I mean, the part that's so ridiculous about it is I'm a historian by training, so I really want the date, right?
Right.
Level, I know what I'm doing is wrong, right? Every time
no, it's not wrong. It's not wrong.
So wrong. So I ask people their name and where they are, but I'm not asking you what day it is because I'm like, because I made it, I'm not going to air it right the moment it's happening. So.
Well, and it is. It's our human nature to it's related to that push of new. What's the most up to date thing,
Exactly. It's ridiculous. So so that's we don't put dates on stuff. So okay. So the most important question is, why is it so hard for us to sew a 1/4-inch seam? You have it. What is that about? Like,
wait, are you saying because I've written it a dozen times? I've written about it.
No, just because it is constant, right? It is like we're all trying to attain the perfection of the 1/4-inch seam.
And now it's even more complicated because now it's the perfect scant 1/4-inch.
I know, that's
to make it even more difficult. I know. It is so difficult. The first lady that I took a sewing lesson from, told me that I needed to just learn to be able to eyeball it. If I was a real quilter, I could really eyeball a 1/4-inch seam. I don't know. I'm like, no, I need to check. I need to measure. I need to make sure.
It's funny. Well, it is pretty interesting that's the whole. That is like maybe it's like golf. Like
it is.
They're like golfing, like they're whatever. Like the 1/4-inch seam.
It is. The elusive 1/4-inch.
The elusive 1/4-inch seam. And when you say that to anyone, they just think you're ridiculous. Right? I wonder if like woodworkers or, other people that have, like, do they feel the same way? Do they?
I don't know. Actually, I'm embarking on a new adventure soon I'm researching and launching another planner, and I'm going to reach out to people who are makers, which is kind of
cool.
new-ish. catchphrase, but it includes woodworkers. So I'm going to ask that question when I start meeting with, I'm this week meeting with tons of different makers. And I'll be like, what's your version of the 1/4 inch seam? What's your thing that you're,
on your maker planner, you might include, if you want, and I'm happy to give you information on it, that on trademark and patents, because the makers, they have to be on a certain, if you're going to patent something, you have a clock that ticks the moment you are in the public.
Wow, that's fascinating. I was, when I first read about you, I was thinking there's such a paucity of information for people who are in the creative field about copyright and trademark. We need consultants that we can turn to that can give this information. And I think that's brilliant. Thank you for sharing that idea with me. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we're going to start to think about sort of how to help the quilt entrepreneur or just craft entrepreneurs. We're starting to plan for that, to figure out, how to really, because I'm also a social entrepreneurship professor. So we've been playing in these areas, and I'm kind of amazed that there's so many people like you or that aspire to be you. And there's just not a lot of information out there.
And we're all going, am I doing this right?
Yeah.
It's very complicated and definitely, I think we're looking for a beacon of light to guide us. So please.
So if you want, I'm happy to have you, give you just a little tip on that.
I would love it.
Because I worry about especially anyone who's got a patent idea.
Yes.
They can't go blurting it out everywhere because you lose that right.
That's fascinating when you say that, because think of all of the people that are sharing maker spaces now, where they're these co-working spaces. So how do you approach that if you're sharing space?
I know. It's totally insane. And then the other thing is that we're going to try to get out is that Tulane just got certified by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to be a satellite lab, so we can do pro bono work for people for patents and trademarks, and they can.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm hoping that the creative community start to come and see this as a place. And the thing that's so cool is I know now I'm just telling you ridiculous things, but there's provisional and non-provisional patents. So the first stage is you can get a year, but for that one, it's $75.
Yeah.
The filing fee is $75 because you're a micro entity. So
I did that.
Yeah, did you do that?
I did that for,
What did you do that for?
I just gave it a shot with the planner. I know unlikely. I know it's unlikely, but hey, I thought I'm gonna do this.
This is so cool. That's great.
When are you gonna? What was that?
As a methods patent?
I have to look back on my paperwork actually.
Probably.
When is Tulane going to be able to do this, provide this kind of service for people?
We started this spring.
And how do people contact you for it?
We have a link and you apply. We'll be doing it in the fall and the spring. We haven't got summer yet because students aren't around. So that's, they're off doing other things. So, but I can send you a link to it and also give you some more info if you want. But we'll be starting to get it out, and applications will be probably in August. And then you can apply either to get trademark work done, and there's still a government fee for the trademark, but your legal fees are pro bono. And
wow.
Patent. And the definition of who counts is you have to have under 500 employees.
Uh-huh.
So
I think most of us probably qualify.
Right? Who doesn't qualify, right?
Right.
So and then you're reviewed by, we have different attorneys that are working for us pro bono. So they get to choose their clients. So, you have to get chosen by one of the attorneys that are working on the project. But that's it. So
wow, that's really wonderful. Very cool.
So that's what I'm hoping comes out of this project, is talking to people like you, and at some point talking more in depth to you off camera about your process, what you did, what would have been helpful, and those will be more private conversations about how do we help an entrepreneur, how do we help people understand what you're doing so that we're not reinventing the wheel every time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's fascinating. You're doing great work. That's really, really, really great.
Well, I'll be using your planner to get it all organized.
Oh, good. I know. We need all the help we can get,
So, yeah, that's my next step, is to fill that planner.
Don't be afraid to write in it. Mine is really messy. It's very messy.
I just felt like I was going to mess it up, that I was going to write something wrong.
Scratch it out. It's okay.
Scratch it out. Well, you're insanely delightful. I'm so psyched. Thank you so much for spending time.
Thank you.
To do some follow-up when we're starting to do the entrepreneurship stuff for real.
I'm so excited about it. I can't wait. Is it okay if I tell people? I guess it's going to be on the podcast. We're telling people, right?
And when I edit this, I will find out, since I'm not in charge of the link. The link is up, and so I think you can probably apply. We'll see I'll find out more about the applicant. Clearly, I'm not the one taking in the intake. So
okay, all right. Well, I know a lot of people who are going to be excited about this.
Well, I just think we can get some really interesting. I like our lab to be different. I mean, there's a lot of law schools that are doing this, and I think we have an opportunity to have a really interesting group and interesting things that come in. So
absolutely.
We're such a creative community, both and also trademark to get the names out. Like, people aren't trademarking their name, which is crazy. Right?
Yeah, I know.
And that's really important. That's really important. So anyway.
Well, thank you for doing this project.
Well, thank you for chatting with me, and thank you for trying to keep everyone organized and help us keep organized. It would be interesting. Have you done surveys? And I'll let you go then. Is our productivity going up through these planners?
I actually haven't asked that question in my survey, but I think that would be a great one to add. But somebody just posted that on social media, I think maybe yesterday, about how her productivity has gone up and how being productive is different than being busy. And she's really noticed a change in that. And I was so excited. I saved a screenshot of that comment because you're right. That really is the goal. How to be more productive and feel good about what you're doing without feeling overwhelmed with just busyness.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try it because I've got way too many projects going, so I'm hoping that they get done, and that it's in part because of this planner. So I will be thinking about you every day as I try to plan things. So
happy planning and sewing. I hope it helps.
Thank you so much.
So this is Elizabeth Townsend-Gard. You've been listening to Just Wanna Quilt, a research podcast coming out of Tulane University Law School. We want to hear from you. Join our army, our quilting army. Go to our Facebook page. Suggest people to be interviewed. Suggest yourself to be interviewed. We are excited to hear from you. But most importantly, I hope you get a chance to quilt today.